on her ride to work.
Hello, and welcome to another action-packed adventure that we call the Geeky Voices Carry podcast. We are less one podcaster this evening because I'm not allowed to say Stacy's dead, so I will just say that she is not with us any longer today.
Hell, would have been traffic.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, with me,
that's California for you.
Yeah,
traffic.
That traffic, it'll a day and a half later, and you're still in rush hour.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. All right, with me as always is David Rollins.
Hey.
And Josh Thompson.
Hey there.
And we will periodically pretend to answer a question in the style of Stacy Dell'Orfano, who cannot be with us tonight.
Okay, I think that has to go to David since he's the voice guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
David I don't know.
David will be answering her questions as Sean Connery.
All right.
Okay. So, we were going to talk about our fun adventures with Fate. For those 3 or 4 people that don't know what the hell we're talking about, we are talking about the Fate Core RPG system from Evil Hat. And for the last, 3 weeks?
Yep, about that.
3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks. It's hard to tell because we took a week to make characters.
2 weeks, actually, to make characters, but yeah.
Yeah, it took us 2 weeks to make characters. We're underachievers.
Well, I would argue that you're easily distracted is part of the problem, but...
Yeah. Well, we can go into character creation for the first bit then, I think, because I know at least for the most part the character creation is pretty quick and easy, but I think it was the aspects that really kind of slowed us down since...
Well, I think it was a matter of getting used to that sort of a mechanic where you have descriptors for your character rather than... numbers
just
or
straight numbers for everything.
Yeah. I don't know. I like that. That was one of my favorite parts of it.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just it takes a while to get used to. I mean, it takes a while to find something that's gonna actually work.
That's true. Yeah. You're not sure if it's gonna stick. A number is pretty clear, but you could say something, and that's the thing about the aspects. You just don't know if they'll be even remotely useful.
Yeah, I had to rewrite mine a couple of times just to try and get them to hopefully be useful. And,
Well, that is one of the things about Fate is, your character really isn't as cast in stone as it is with a lot of other RPGs. So if you are, new to the system, or if you're not quite sure how your character is going to shake out, it is nice that you can kind of tweak and fine-tune things as you go along.
That's true.
But it does, it does, unlike a lot of RPGs, you really have to have, I think, a strong concept for what you want your character to be to start with, rather than just letting the concept develop as you start to roll things.
Yeah, because you don't do any rolling.
Right. Well, I mean, even with other point-buy systems, or with point-buy, Fate isn't really a point-buy system. I mean, I think that is, if you're playing, say, like a game of GURPS, you can put a character together without having a strong concept, and it can kind of develop as you're putting your character together. But that is one thing that is both kind of a strength and a weakness, I think, of Fate for some people. That you have to have an idea of what your character is before you start playing. Which is what I told you guys. I told you guys to have, a character concept in mind. I know no one ever listens to the GM. So.
But I did.
That's because you're Canadian.
Yeah.
You nominally read the rules too, unlike some people in the group.
Well, and Stacy didn't read the rules, but she did come with a character idea with a pretty solid background.
Yeah, I think
actually
Stacey,
moving our plot forward.
Yeah, I think Stacy actually had the strongest character concept of the group.
You don't really need to read the rules of Fate, but just mostly because, I mean, for the most part, there really isn't much rules there if you actually look at it.
You know what? All the rules you really need to know as a player are on the bookmark that came with the book.
Or just the character sheet.
Only if you got it on the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Well, you should have. Are they on the character sheet?
Most of it is.
The rules aren't actually on the character sheet.
No.
Well,
the main thing is just knowing, you know, and this isn't really a part of character creation, but in the rules itself. And honestly, I think this is a place where you guys are kind of not using the game to its full potential. You're besides the character creation, one of the places where the game really kind of shines is in the use of the actions, the overcome action, the create advantage action, and things like that you don't normally get to do in a normal role-playing game, where if you make a successful roll at something, you don't get to add something to a scene or create something.
Oh, that's true. We haven't done that.
And you guys really
except by magic.
I don't think so.
No. So, I've been waiting. I'm not,
Yeah. Yeah, we should really do that, because the pixel pitching we've been doing so far is not working.
Yeah, that is one part of it. I will say it is easy to get successes in this game. It just...
Well, yeah, as long as you do only the things you're good at.
Well...
Which is what a team would do anyways.
Well...
It's pretty reasonable.
Well, and one of the things that I've always liked about the dice rolling, and this goes back to Fudge, was that the guy Stephen Sullivan, when he was creating Fudge, he wanted a dice mechanic that kind of flattened out the probabilities, because his thing was, most RPG characters are heroic characters. And heroic characters shouldn't be like,
falling off their horses.
Falling off their horses, or fumbling a lock picking roll if they're a world class burglar.
Or dropping their sword when they're freaking Conan. Conan never dropped his sword.
So
ever.
the idea was that with the way the dice worked, and this is kind of carried through into Fate, is that by kind of flattening out the probability, he weighted it on success, because the idea was that these are supposed to be people that
Didn't he create more of a curve for the probability than flattening it out?
Well, no, because it really weighs heavily on six. I mean, as you guys have, it weighs really heavily on a normal kind of success. Whereas you hit your target, or you hit it with just slightly over.
Yep.
And and then the next biggest probability is getting a high rate of success, and then the next probability is getting failures or spectacular failures.
Mm-hmm.
And Fate's come up with a lot of things like when you invoke an aspect to get a bonus or a reroll, you can take a lot of that failure out of the whole equation too.
Well, you don't have to accept a failure either. You just have to take a consequence in order to succeed. If you don't roll. Like, you don't even have to ever fail.
Right.
Or you can spend a fate point or something, yeah. It'll cost you something, but...
Yeah, it always costs you, but you can continue to succeed. That just makes the story a little bit more interesting, or the action a bit more interesting.
Well, and the cost tends to be more of a story cost than you're injured kind of cost. Like,
yeah, you're out of the game now. Aren't you glad you did that? There's none of that.
Yeah. Now, one thing that we've done a lot of over time is compared Fate to Savage Worlds.
Oh God.
Have we done that?
We always use them together just as like opposites. I don't think it's really too much in a comparison.
Well,
man.
I think if we'd had a good GM running our Savage Worlds adventure,
Oh, yeah. That would have helped.
yeah, it probably would have, gone a lot better, because obviously
I
our
don't know.
GM didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Well, you've played with all kinds of GMs, and you came out with this exact same opinion of the game as when you started.
Oh yeah, I've played with people that are Savage Worlds publishers. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So
I've never. I don't know why.
Josh's skill as a GM.
I don't know why the hell they asked me to play, because you'd think by now people would realize that Savage Worlds and I are not a mix.
Well, anyways, I found it slow and cumbersome, and I've read the system, and I always thought, like, why? There seems to be a lot of extra stuff to do compared to other games that other games that are just fast and don't make any claims to be fast. Like, I understand that it's a lot faster than 3.5 edition Dungeons and Dragons or D20.
My grandmother is faster than 3rd edition.
Yeah, but
well, if she were alive, my grandmother would be faster than 3rd edition. But
the thing is, it's not faster than a rules light game, and Fate is very rules light. Like I said, you could play it with the bookmark if you really wanted to.
Well, that's why, you've got, the different flavors of Fate, too, because you've got Fate Core, which is what we're using, and you've got Fate Accelerated, which is, just kind of the essentials version of the Fate rules,
Yeah.
It's a bit lighter, but
I don't know that we're really playing Fate Core. I think we're playing something in between Fate Core and Fate Accelerated.
Well, yeah, I think,
Probably.
we tend to streamline a game process regardless, because we're lazy, I guess would be a good...
I think you're lazy. I was game for friggin' Core.
Hey.
I've been a little disappointed with it so far. I guess...
I know you have... honestly, I think that a lot of the issues, I'm using air quotes for those who are listening, that you're having is coming from the fact that we're tending to not really play. We're not really playing the system to its full effect. And so
that's probably it. Playing Fate so far reminds me a lot of playing World of Darkness in the 90s. This is where I give everybody a Stacy moment. I'm going to talk about World of Darkness. When I read the rules for World of Darkness, I was really excited. I was like, ooh, this is a cool new way to play. This is interesting. And what I saw was a game about vampires trying to regain their humanity. So a lot of story, a lot of trying to, basically an atonement kind of campaign. Reaching for something you used to have but don't have anymore.
And
the game I got was superheroes in trench coats. Thugs. Supernatural thugs.
Well, on some levels, this game isn't that far from supernatural thugs.
No, not really.
You have set fire to someone's house, after all.
Yeah, that was actually David, too, so...
It's, I did that for role-playing reasons.
Yeah.
I was trying to cover our tracks.
That's just, those. I set fire to that boat in Lamentations for role-playing reasons too.
Yes.
And the tower, and the where else? The town, and
it was all the same character, so
My character is, that's one of his aspects, or is something. Yeah, it's one of his aspects that he likes to find a solution with magic.
Which is fine. No, I'm not really giving you crap about doing that. I think that was a valid thing for the character to do, which is why I think Stacy's character doesn't like having your character around. Because being that her character is the law enforcement officer and the only official person in the party, you guys are spending a lot of time making her job more difficult.
we are good at that, though.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of have to get through that campaign, but I guess that is another thing with not using the rules to the fullest. But at the same time, does that mean we actually have to read the rules more in depth to make better use of them? Because it
Well, I
wasn't
think
something
it
we had to do with
helps,
Swords and
obviously.
Wizardry. Yeah, Swords and
Well, Swords
Wizardry.
and Wizardry, though, I mean, with a more traditional and, you know, in that case, old school game, it's really, I mean, all you have to do is just, when the GM tells you to roll a die, you just do that, and then...
Yeah, I think that's the problem with Fate. The problem with Fate is it's built on different assumptions that we're not used to. Normally, we're just like, okay, I'm going to decide that my character is going to do something, and I'm going to tell the GM, yeah, I want to do this. And the GM will say, okay, you have to roll this die, or yeah, you can do that. With Fate, one of the options are, I can change the room so that it has this thing in it, or I can change the story so all of a sudden I've got this lead or this line or this path happening if I use a fate point, if I invoke an aspect.
Yeah.
And that's not something we're doing because it's not an assumption that we game with.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think that as you guys get used to the system, that, you know, you'll be better about doing those things, and it will make a difference in the tone of the game.
Mm. But in some ways, isn't it almost like Savage Worlds, like that, where you have to know what to invoke and when to invoke it and all kinds of stuff like that? Because that's exactly what wasn't happening in Savage Worlds. Even though I did give them the combat cheat sheets that they did not use.
That no one read.
Exactly.
I read the combat sheets.
Well, see,
I tried to use it.
That's the root of the problem of our gaming group, is that it doesn't matter what happens, only David will read the stuff we give out.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why I don't give anything out.
Except
when I run.
Except for riffs, because, you know, everyone was like going, "Ooh, look at these pictures," and so that encouraged them to read the books.
That's not true. Stacy won't read the rules, but she will read any setting material that you send her.
Actually, she did. Yeah, she read the stuff for riffs too. I think, well, that's an interesting point to bring up. So why was riffs, you know, different for reading material? Is it just because of the art?
Because it's turned up to 11.
Oh.
Yeah,
Fate's a platform that you can do anything with, so it's not terribly exciting. The art isn't exciting. It's generic, and there's no real setting material in it, even though the default setting is like a fantasy, medieval-ish fantasy setting.
That's it?
Yeah, for all the examples it is.
In the core book, yeah.
In the core book it is.
If you read the core book, you'd know these things.
Yeah.
It'd be more pulpy or something, but okay.
Yeah, it's a bit more pulpy, but I mean, it's still that's what it's set as. But that's very generic. Everything about Fate is super generic. Nothing about Riffs is generic. It's all like this one guy's complete mad acid trip, and it's fantastic.
It's some guy took acid, looked at a 1970s van that had a wizard fighting a dragon on the side of it, and the next thing you know, we have riffs.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's what happened.
I mean, there is setting material for Fate too. I mean, there's a lot if you go into the Worlds of Fate books, there's a lot.
Yeah, but there's setting material for Savage Worlds.
Well, yeah.
There's fantastic setting material for Savage Worlds. Some of the best settings in RPGs are in Savage Worlds. The only problem is you have to use Savage Worlds to play it because it's integrated with the system.
So we have some pretty interesting stuff there.
But I haven't seen much from Fate that has really excited me. I think the whole point of Fate, what's nice about Fate, is I can take something I already like and I can just play there.
With little to no effort.
Yeah, with little to no effort. The fact that you can just create a setting on the fly, almost like the ultimate sandbox, and that's part of. I think that we don't understand as a bunch of players is that we can create as much of the world as we want as we're going.
Right.
We can own the authorship of the setting.
And honestly, like I said, I think once that gets the hang of it, once you guys get the hang of that, and if Stacy ever read the rules, it would move a lot more quickly. Because honestly, I think if she knew the rules better, that she would.
She'd probably be one of the stronger players.
Yeah,
she'd probably be one of the stronger players for sure.
So, now I do think you were talking about settings with Fate, and this isn't a published by Evil Hat thing, but I think that one of the strongest games coming out with Fate is Sarah Newton's Mindjammer.
Mindjammer, that sounds like fun. What's that?
It's a as it's written, it's basically like a transhumanist far future science fiction game.
What do you mean when you say transhumanist?
There's a lot of you can swap yourself into robot bodies. You can play a spaceship.
Ooh, you can be a ship?
You can be a spaceship, yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think if our campaign continues at the rate it's going, we're going to end up with Josh's character's text-to-voice software as being its own character.
Probably, yeah.
That isn't true.
Try it into something.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a really cool game, and it takes the idea, the rules of Fate Core, and it puts them into this kind of just crazy ass, 10,000 years in the future kind of science fiction setting where you can do anything and be anything. And I mean, I think that's a testament to the strengths of Fate, where you can make a game where you can play a spaceship, and
True.
you just make it like you would anything else. I mean, it's not like there aren't other transhumanist games that have these approaches too, because you've got Transhuman Space from Steve Jackson Games, and Eclipse Phase, and Praxis Nova. I think that's the right name of it.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. But really, I think that Mindjammer is a game to watch for, not only because it utilizes the Fate system so well, but honestly, I think that Sarah Newton is just a phenomenal designer, and is that one game away from being a really big name. And I think Mindjammer is going to end up being that game.
Okay, so what is her advantage? Since we're talking about Fate, what advantage does she gain by using Fate rather than her own mechanic, or adapting part of Fudge and making her own thing?
Well, for one. Fate is a pretty big name, so that does help it.
Oh yeah, it's number 4 right now, if you can believe the stats.
Yeah.
And I think
number
that's part
3.
of it. I mean, but
it's about D&D.
I think, it's the scalability of the system. The fact that the way it's done, it'll the character creation, you can make a human, or you can make a little cybernet, or you can make a giant spaceship, or all with the same rules without really any major overhaul to them. It's just a matter of going, these are the kind of aspects you might want, as opposed to I mean, imagine trying to do that with, say, with Swords and Wizardry. If you wanted to try to make a ship, using the rules to Swords and Wizardry, you'd end up having to come up with all sorts of special cases
No, you wouldn't. You would just hand wave half of it. You would say, okay, you operate this way in space, and when you're on the ground, you're using an avatar like they did in what was that show?
Lantern?
No. Yeah, actually, a lot like Green Lantern.
They do that in Green.
They stole that from Andromeda, I thought.
Oh yeah, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just scale the numbers up in Swords and Wizardry, really, and just do it that way.
But, with it being Fate, you don't actually have to do any of that scaling.
Yeah, but will it feel right if you don't scale it? Because if you are a big ship, you would assume you would be, at least stronger in some ways and a lot, have a different feel than just playing a human character. So if it feels exactly the same, then is it actually worthwhile?
Well, yeah, but that's your aspect, right? You can't operate on the fine-tune mode that all the people can. As a ship, you can only operate on that grand scale. It's as much a disadvantage to be at that scale as it is to be at a smaller scale. If you encounter another Space Hulk, you're outside. You're doing what you can do. Maybe you can bump into the other ship and shake it or whatever at an opportune moment. Yes. But other than that, you cannot affect the action going on inside.
It's not so much that, but does it capture the feel of being a spaceship as well as, you would imagine it would or hope it would? If you're using the same exact system, the same exact rules, the same exact character essentially as a human, is it really going to work as a spaceship?
I don't know. Maybe we should try that out.
Because that's kind of what I'm wondering, because I know Fate does scale very well, but can it scale that far? And can it still have that feel?
I think it can. If you look at the rules that I for those that read the house rule document that I gave you in our campaign, I know. Actually, I know one person did because she used it on her character, and that was Ethel.
Yeah.
But one of the things I took it from the Kerberos Club game that Arc Dream put out. Basically, it was sort of a scaling mechanism for skills that allows you to it scales your skills up and makes it, if you're on a higher scale, you do things easier, and it's automatically less difficult if you're opposing somebody and stuff like that. And it was a fairly simple way of doing it. So I think it's really easy to just kind of take the ideas of what they call the Fate fractal and just kind of zoom in or zoom out and use the tools you already have to make your character.
We'll have to see. Might actually have to do that one on camera or something. That could be fun.
Well, only if you guys actually read the rules. Because I'm not playing. There's no way in hell I'm running a transhuman science fiction game.
I think that'll depend on the setting material and the artwork.
The artwork is actually pretty cool. I will say I've got a PDF of it that I got from Sarah.
See, but it's a specific setting. That's the thing about artwork. If you have a specific setting, you can create evocative art for that setting. If you have a generic setting, you end up with generic art that everybody complains about.
No, I think you can do generic art that's still evocative. I think you do.
That's if you have an assumed setting, or an implicit setting.
Yeah, but you can just do different things. You can you can have art that's like fantasy art. You can have art that's superheroes. You can have art that's Hong Kong action theater. And you're not as long as it's exciting, interesting art, then it gets the point across.
I think it's less likely to happen in a generic setting. I think that there's an excitement around an explicit setting, and there could be that same excitement around an implicit setting. But just a generic setting, I think you're not going to have the excitement. And I think that's the big weakness of Fate, is that it is the generic nature of the game, which makes it so adaptable and so easy to bring into something you're already excited about, that it has less personality of its own.
For artwork, I don't think that matters so much, because you could drop just random pieces of Rift artwork throughout the Fate manual, it would still work, just because it doesn't really matter. I think it was mostly just the art direction for it was not good. Is probably what I would say.
Yeah, but I
They
think
could have had very specific pieces done by artists that were very evocative and put them in there, and it would have still worked because it wouldn't have mattered.
I think the problem with the Fate Core art is that there's too many pictures of people standing around waiting for something to happen.
That too.
Rather than it is art of people doing
it's
stuff.
because they're thinking about what to do with their aspects.
How they're going to
Exactly.
invoke, how they're going to invoke to get a Fate point.
That's right. Oh, maybe I can get a compel here. Well, if I just wait for something to happen, maybe it'll compel me to do something interesting.
Oh.
But I mean, and it's interesting because and if you compare actually the two core books, the Fate Core to the Fate Accelerated, I think that the Fate Accelerated has much better art
I would say
than Fate Core, because there's a lot, you see a lot more. It's art of people doing stuff.
Yeah, but it's also designed to be faster and more in it, and more dewy.
Yeah,
I just made up a word.
Dewey.
Dewy.
Huey, Louie, and Dewey.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's more active. I think
Fate is supposed to be an active game. Period. That's one of the concepts. If people read the rules, they'd know these things. That it's supposed to be about proactive characters, doing exciting stuff, or just doing stuff in general. It doesn't have to be exciting necessarily. Just doing stuff, rather than sitting around the Waffle House and trying to figure out what they're going to do next.
Hash browns are doing something. I mean,
well, part of the problem with the sitting around the Waffle House trying to figure out what to do next, and Josh's character in particular using sitting around the Waffle House as taking waiting in the hallway to the extreme, is our old school games have taught us to be careful.
Well,
true.
and I've said this before, and you guys have agreed with me to varying amounts, but you guys suck at sandbox.
Probably.
And I think that is a big part of the problem, is that you guys just really aren't proactive people when it comes to gaming. And I think
we did do sandbox with Rifts, and look where that took us.
Oh my god!
You saw what happened when we went full on sandbox.
Yeah, it's funny because you did that with Rifts, and now I think, well, after what happened with Rifts, I think you guys are like afraid of
that actually might be. That might be part of it. Yeah,
that's a possibility. We went way off the rails there, man.
Which was awesome, but
it was kind of awesome, but it was also
that's
ridiculous.
The point of it being sandbox play, is that you're supposed to go off the rails. There aren't any rails for you to to go off of, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a combination of factors, but I think the main thing is, if you guys were more confident with the system, I think that that would definitely change the tone of things as well.
Maybe.
That's possible.
So,
actually, that's probably really likely.
I think we're just so used to swords and wizardry that
riffs or whatever.
Yeah. So, what about that? What about transitioning from like a D&D or D&D type game to Fate? What's something to look out for? Something to try
read
and
the
change?
rules always helps.
Well, I think we should get over the fear of death, because it's a lot harder to die in Fate.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you should take more risks.
Like, we went through that OSR team dungeon for Contessa in that competition. We lost almost no hit points.
We lost a fierce amount of people the entire time.
Yeah, and we also lost the competition because we didn't cover enough ground, because we're so damn careful.
Well, that was also because somebody was pixel bitching, but I'm not going to name names, David.
Really?
Hey man, we found the stuff in the rooms we got to, and yeah, I probably slowed things down because I'm too careful of a player.
Yeah.
which I think is a huge drawback in Fate. So I think that's something you have to really look at your play style for Fate. You have to take way more risks.
I mean, and there's a reason why I haven't really been pushing it on you guys. I mean, I could be, pushing it more, but I'm not, because I know that you guys are still getting used to a new mode of playing. So
I think we could probably use a bit more prodding, though.
Yeah.
The last game was.
Well,
was
I have started prodding
slow.
you guys. Because I did, was last week or the week before when I told you guys you needed to start invoking your aspects.
Probably
Did
both
mention
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're still not really doing that very much. So.
No, I'm hardly invoking them at all.
Yeah.
And
you, of all people, should be doing it more, because that's what you can use to fuel your spell casting.
Well, I have been using it to fuel my spell casting, but that's it.
Yeah.
It's like I'll invoke an aspect to get either grab a fate point for spell casting or just to cast.
Yeah.
Flat out. But that's all I've been using it for.
Well, and I've said a couple of times when you guys have tried something, I have said, does anybody want to invoke your aspect and maybe do a oh no, let's just. And I think that's.
Yeah, there's the thing, but I did invoke it. I invoked an aspect to try and get some information.
Yeah.
On what we were dealing with, and I got nowhere, and I was like, oh well, great.
Well, yeah.
That didn't work.
Well, it's because you were asking a dumb question.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. You weren't asking a dumb. It was a good question. It just wasn't the right question. So.
Yeah, well, see, that's a little bit harder to work with, though, because if we just have to find the right question, then.
Well, and we also.
Again, and that's pixel pitching in a totally different level.
I know.
Finding the right question, which is, I think, the source of my frustration with our game. It's like I have to figure out the right question that Chris thought of. I don't know. I'm not even American. How can I think like you guys?
But I mean, it's just a lot of it is just getting into the new mindset, and once we've kind of gotten over that speed bump, it will impact play a lot.
I suppose.
Well, maybe we can see.
And then the second thing is getting Stacy to read the rules.
I'm not gonna do that.
Well, there is a lot of useless rules in the core book. I will say there's a lot of wasted space, for the most part.
You think so?
Like, what do you think?
I mean,
I think that useless space are the rules you're not using.
I mean, I think there's just a lot of stuff there that you don't really need to read or really cover, and there's just it could be compressed a lot smaller than it actually is, and all that extra stuff, all the extra examples, all the extra stuff that you don't need, really is just kind of getting in the way.
Yeah, you're right, and that's called Fate Accelerated Edition.
Yeah, but we're not really using Fate Accelerated Edition
No, we're
technically.
not. But we're not playing that game, Josh. We're playing Fate Core.
I know, but I'm not going to read through all those pages.
I'd love to play a Call of Cthulhu game with Fate, either Accelerated or Core. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think Accelerated would be the way
I think
to go.
it would lend itself really well to that kind of a game.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Which I think might be part of my problem, because I think I unconsciously created an investigator instead of a paranormal romance character.
I think that's actually. I think a chunk of our party probably is more suited to a Call of Cthulhu game instead of what we're doing, which is some sort of paranormal investigation. That's just like not quite mythos.
Well, that's I was just basically taking the lead of the the characters that you guys created and the sort of because the idea of the aspects is that you're kind of naming parts of the world, the setting. So I played off of what you guys, which is why I had you give me copies of all your character sheets, so I knew these things. But So yeah, I mean that's why it went in that direction. Was so.
Yeah, so there's just something we're not figuring out then, but well,
it'll probably click partway through.
Yeah.
Until then, I'll just keep blowing shit up with my spells.
And on that note, we should probably go.
Wait. We should segue. I really like the dice.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Rolling the dice, because typically I don't like special dice. I find them a really annoying thing that certain people do with their games to sell dice and make their game less accessible.
Like Star Wars?
Sure. So, the only Star Wars I've played was the West End Games version, which was just D6s. Yeah. But these plus and minus dice, I mean, you can use normal six-siders, or you can do what I did, which was take a bunch of wooden cubes and drop pluses and minuses on them. It's fun. I don't know. I like it. I like them. I don't know. What do you guys feel about the Fate dice?
Well, I've had fudge dice for years, so
You're over it.
Yeah.
I have a set. They're nice.
Can't get them up here, and I don't want to pay the shipping.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the answer to that would be come down for Gen Con. Then you can get all the dice you want.
I don't know. As a low grade internet celebrity, I don't know. I might get swamped. Someplace like Gen Con.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Don't
anyway.
You know who I am?
Don't you know who I am? Haven't you heard of me? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I have to wear a name tag.
Well, it's a convention. Everyone has to wear a name tag.
Yes, and a T-shirt with a really long explanation of why they should know who I am. No. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, fudge dice.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I usually find games that have special dice. I find that really annoying. It makes their game less accessible, and it's just annoying. Like six-siders with a particular sign on them is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about 20-siders, which are quite accessible in comparison to those.
See, now I think that the fudge/fate dice make it more accessible because it really kind of downplays. It's one of those things you look at it and go, okay, I've got 3 pluses and a minus, so I've got a +2.
Yeah.
And it makes the whole process go a lot faster, and it really kind of takes out some of the math.
Yeah, it does.
Which is one of the things I think that upsets a lot of gamers. Which is funny because most of the taking the math out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Which is funny because a lot of them tend to be crappy at it, and
yeah.
But I honestly I think that's a part of the hate that Fate gets, is that it takes a lot of the math out of the equation.
No, we don't even roll that much anyway to begin with. So.
Well, it's because you should be rolling dice when it's something that's important to the story.
So you're saying we don't do anything that's important.
No,
not so far. We're asking the wrong questions. At least we haven't lit any people on fire yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's make our segue into something cool, shall we, gentlemen?
Okay.
Oh, I thought we were going to segue into the dice topic. We're just not going to do that?
No, because it's already like
an hour.
Yeah. Oh, yes. All right, then.
Yeah. All right, Josh, I'll let you start because you usually just grab whatever's on one of your computer monitors anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So...
Looks like I'm on one of his computer monitors.
Yeah, it's kind of weird seeing you looking behind him.
Let's see, one of the games that I've gotten and played since the last one was Transistor, which is from the team that also made a game called Bastion. And this is a really cool little game. I really wish I could pull up some artwork or something to throw up there, but basically it's set in this futuristic cyber type setting. It's almost transhuman in a sense, but it has a really great story, really beautiful hand-painted artwork for it, and a really amazing soundtrack. and some really interesting gameplay mechanics in that it's kind of an action game, but it has the ability to kind of pause it and play it as like a strategy game at the same time. So it switches between the two modes, like just freely, which is very cool. And it's just a really cool game. The soundtrack is probably one of the best game soundtracks that I've heard in a long time too. So that's one of the reasons to get it.
Cool.
David?
Well, I think the coolest thing I've seen so far this week is the Reading Rainbow Kickstarter.
Reading Rainbow Kickstarter.
You are not aware of the Reading Rainbow Kickstarter?
You're like the only person in the world, apparently, because it's made like the gross national debt of, France or something in like 3 or 4 days.
I do not keep up with social media, so.
In 11 hours, they made $1 million.
And then on the second day, by the time the second day was over, they'd made 2.
Yeah. KickTrack has them.
Oh,
yeah, LeVar Burton is back at it. Now, the reason I mention it is because our hobby really depends on literacy. I'm a little old.
Only if you read the rules.
Yes. Well, or the setting material. Some people read settings. Some people even write settings and then don't play them. But anyway, our hobby requires literacy, and it hinges on people's ability to enter these worlds of imagination. And while I'm a little old for Reading Rainbow, I think it's really important. And
reading is fundamental.
Reading is fundamental for pretty much everything, and I think that people should take a look at it and think about supporting it. KickTrack has them. They expect them to hit about $32 million by the time they're done. Which, I mean, think of what they can do. How many people can be introduced to basically the power of their own brains, and the value of imagination through the tools that they're coming up with. So I'm probably gonna contribute at some point. I wish I had the cash to get the picnic with LeVar Burton.
Oh man, that'd been awesome.
That would be just hilarious. I've heard him on the Nerdist. He seems like being interviewed. He just seems like a riot. So yeah, check it out if you haven't heard of it. You have now. And
I think Josh is the only person that hadn't heard of it, to be honest.
Probably.
And really, it's just worth going and seeing LeVar Burton's reaction at 11 hours when it funded.
Yeah.
They interrupted filming of whatever they were working on. That it's something he was whatever movie or TV show he's working on. To watch it flip over.
I'll have to go find that.
Yeah, it really, it's really worthwhile. So.
Yeah.
Check it out.
That's cool, because I used to actually watch that when I was a kid, so that's a great series.
And people talk a lot about growing the hobby. You want to grow the hobby? Friggin' throw some dollars at Reading Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Get people to read.
Yeah, get people reading, because that was my gateway into gaming was Ursula K. Le Guin's with Earthsea series. That was my first step into. That was where I started, and then, found my way into gaming after that.
I guess my something cool is going to be a little less
profound,
paradigm changing, I guess. I've been the last couple of days finally had a chance that I've been working on my next self-publishers roundup article for Bleeding Cool.
Oh, cool.
And one of the things that I got for it was the first 2 issues of Tim Callahan's Crawljammer zine, which it's for the Dungeon Crawl, easy for me to say, the Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG.
DCC, yeah.
And it's basically
I've heard of that.
It's basically a science fantasy setting that he's developing through the issues of the zine.
Fun.
it's one of these things where you can adapt the things to pretty much any old school game, but I describe it in the piece as I don't know if you guys remember back in the day in the 70s 80s, they used to like to take Thor into outer space. And there were these awesome scenes in the comic where you would have these your standard sci-fi alien guys on a spaceship who would then lose their shit because a Viking longship is paddling towards them. And then these Vikings would disembark and start attacking them with swords and hammers.
We need more of that.
And that is, for me, what Crawljammer is. It is those Vikings on the longship that is paddling through space, that is attacking a spaceship.
I have always loved the mix-up of that. The ships in space. Spelljammer had that, and that was like the one evocative, really. The artwork always blew my mind for Spelljammer, but I never got a chance to play it. And from what I'm told, that's probably just as well.
Yeah, I've heard that about Spelljammer too, and I mean I've said a few times because that's another second edition.
Wow, you skipped second edition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I really recommend it, checking it out. And you can get more information and order issues from Tim's blog, which is crawljammer.blogspot.com.
So is this like DCC rule set then?
Yeah, but like I said, I mean you could easily adapt stuff to pretty much any.
That's cool.
Any type of, if you're not a DCC person, you can.
Don't you need like 300 pages of, I don't know, spell failures to play that game? Is that the one I'm thinking? Is that the right one? Or?
Yes, but apparently he just references the existing 300 pages of spell failures rather than coming up with new ones because these are zines. So.
Right.
Well, that should be fun. I like the rules.
It's a really the zine is really cool, and it's got some really neat stuff to it. And the first issue has a scenario where you're fighting Batman of Venus. So
Oh, fantastic!
How can that be?
That sounds
a bad thing?
Yeah, it's $23 for 6 issues, starting with the first or second.
Yep.
So that's not bad.
No. But yeah, I wholeheartidly recommend it. It's really good, and I'm not a DCC person. I don't even actually own a copy of the game, but so yeah.
It sounds tedious to me.
Well,
it's not at all.
I'm not going to harsh other people's.
Having played
worlds.
it's not bad at all. It's actually quite a lot of fun.
Yeah. That one, the art kills it for me. I can't get past the cover art. I find it. I just don't like it.
Well, I mean, we know what my I've talked about this before. I have a issue with the whole Appendix N thing being turned into Dogma. So
fair enough.
But yeah. So, but anyway, I think we should wrap up. Call it a night.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Say good night, gentlemen.
Night.
Good night.
And thus ends another Geeky Voices carry.
Yeah.